As always, before you start working on any project, it is really important to take a few minutes and get comfortable with the scene. In this one, I'm giving you a group of lanterns. Each one of them is broken down into a body and these little reflective gems. There's a cloth backdrop. The cloth is on a couple of walls that shouldn't show up in the final camera shot. And there is a floor. I'm giving you a camera just to make your lives a little bit easier. I'd like us all to render through the same camera. I know that at some point you are probably going to move the camera by accident. Try not to. Do your best. There's also a physical sky node in the scene, and with the physical sky, just because of the angles that things worked at, I had to change the azimuth a little bit just to angle the shadows slightly more favorably for the scene. What you'll be focusing on is texture maps for the floor, the lanterns, the gems, and the cloth. Some of these I figure you can probably already do. You've already built a cloth shader once, and I don't think I need to repeat that. The gems should also be straightforward since they'll just use basic transmission. When I get to that point, I will go through a really quick shader for them, but you can do whatever you want and have some fun. With the floor, we will work together to make a tiled marble floor in 2 colors. That should be pretty exciting. I usually do that first because I think it's a really good introduction to most of the nodes we'll be working with. So that'll be the next step. The lanterns themselves are going to be metal, and they are going to be aged and rusted. So in my demo, I usually do copper, and when copper rusts, it turns green. That's called verdigris. So I will be doing copper and verdigris, but the same principles would be true if you were doing, let's say, iron and regular red rust. So the 2 big tricks for this are going to be the floor and the bodies of the lantern. After that, the gems and the cloth should be pretty easy, and if you want to go ahead and while you're just looking at the basic scene, texture your cloth, that is no problem. Also in this scene, I have not created any layers, so if you want to make yourself some layers to turn things on and off, go right ahead. Whatever workflow works best for you, use that workflow. Whenever you feel that you are well enough acquainted with this scene, go ahead and open up your Hypershade. I've already got mine set up so that I can see my materials and textures, my outliner, my viewport. I've got the Maya render view over here. Remember that to look through the camera, you go Render, Render, Camera 1, and then you have to use this button each time you want to rerun a render. Just for the record, this icon right here will allow you to keep images in memory, so you can see a few of my tests that I was running. And similarly, this button here will remove icons. So now I'm back to not having any images saved in Maya's memory. I've also got my material viewer set up so that I can preview using Arnold, and as I get into the shading network for the marble floor, I will talk a little bit more about why this is important. And then finally, I've got my same old property editor down here. So take a moment, make sure that your Hypershade is set up, make sure that you are comfortable with the scene, and then let's move on and talk a little bit about material networks.